Welcome to the WP SEO Show, brought to you by SEO Hive, your proactive white label SEO partner. The WP SEO Show is all about talking WordPress and SEO, from optimizations, structures, setups, and plugins. We explore how to make your WordPress website perform better in the search engines. Here are your hosts, Pete Everett and Jeff Patch.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the WP SEO Show. I am your host, Pete, and I'm joined by my brother from another mother, all the way from Norco, California. It is Jeffrey
Ew.
Patch. How you doing?
Don't highlight my town. Nobody wants to come here.
I literally only said it because we were talking about it like 2 minutes ago.
Little spoiler, I'm trying to ship Pete over here for a get together one of these days. So we're working on that. So we've been talking about California destinations, and my town is not one of them. Not one of them. So we're just going to move on from that topic.
So yeah, how you doing, mate? How's the week been?
It's been a bit busy, but and I'm always talking about the weather. We still are in this like dry wind crap, and so we're just all miserable with this. We just want it to I don't care if it gets hotter or colder right now. I just don't want it to be dry and windy. Like it's just we're such Goldilocks here, looking for the perfect Southern California weather, which is that's just like the worst thing to complain about in the world, I admit. So.
Yeah. Well, it's very wet here in Britain. In fact, it's so wet that Mrs. E, has gotten so wet on every dog walk this week that we've decided that she's really some underwater kiwi and does some kind of like rain dance every day. And she's twigged that she's worn a particular jumper, and on 6 of the last 7 days has got like absolutely drenched when she's taking the dog for a walk. So that jumper's a bad omen for the weather.
It's so funny because it's so dry where we live, and we had a really rainy year this year, which was good. We really needed it, but I don't mind the rain. I don't like, oh no, I'm getting wet, I'm outside. Like it doesn't bother me. But me and my whole family, whenever it is raining, it's just funny how many things we don't do because it's raining. We're like, nah, we don't want to do that drive. It's raining. No, we don't want to go do that because it's raining. No, and it's like, oh man, people get rain on every day. In some areas, So
yeah,
we're so spoiled.
We can't be that picky in the UK. So there's a saying that we have over here, which is there's no such thing as inclement weather, just inadequate clothing.
I almost agree with that, except I would say I would prefer cold because I can always put more clothes on. But when it's hot, you can't take off all of your clothes. I mean, not in public.
Well, you could, but
it still may not be enough.
Hang on. This podcast isn't rated for adults, so I think we need to maybe curb this conversation where this is going.
Yeah. On YouTube, I do specify it's not for kids, just to be safe. But yeah.
So okay. So on YouTube, you have that option. In the podcast players, you don't have that option. Your option is explicit or not explicit. So I wish there was like a not for kids option, which maybe doesn't mean explicit, but means not for children.
Right? Yeah, that's like a fine line to say this is not for kids. Like, well, I mean, it's not inappropriate, but it's not for kids. Like,
I mean, in all honesty, I don't think many kids would be too bothered about what we're saying. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I don't think either of them would sit through 40 minutes of us two yakking on. They'd be switching off back onto Fortnite.
I haven't even gotten my kids to click on the YouTube link and subscribe. I would say, hey, can you just give us a subscribe on YouTube? And they're like, oh yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. Sure. Just give us a minute. And they still haven't done it. Yeah. But one of them, I think it was like our 3rd week. One of them texted me when she was at school, which is a no, but she did it anyway. And she was like, hey, what's the link to your podcast? And I was like, are you like talking about it in class or something? She was like, no, my friend wanted to know. And I'm like, does your friend want to listen? She's like, no. Like, okay. Well, here's the link.
This is just the conversation of my dad has a podcast, and your friend is like, no, he doesn't. She's like, yeah, I can prove it. What's the link, Dad?
And then everyone was like, cool, we don't care. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's with some British guy. No, still don't care.
Hey, speaking of not caring, everybody who's listening right now is probably sick of listening to us talk about the weather and whatever else. So why don't we talk about what we're going to talk about today?
That might be a good idea. That might indeed be a good idea. So, if you might have guessed from the title of this podcast that it is about the 10 most common WordPress mistakes, WordPress SEO mistakes that we don't want you to make anymore. And funnily enough, we have a list of 10 of them. So, Mr. JP, why don't you kick us off with number one?
Yeah, we're prepared. We are prepared. And we have talked about some of these in various capacities on here, but we thought it would be really helpful to just kind of make a quick hits list, go down, talk about it, kind of review these, because I've seen many of these, not many, but several of these this week, actually. And, I'm sure anybody listening has made at least one of these. I know that I have. I know my team. It happens. So let's talk about them. Let's try to, get on top of them. The first one, it has to be the absolute most obvious one, yet the one I see most frequently left behind. And that's forgetting to uncheck that little box in the back that says hide this from search engines. You typically do that when you're developing and building the site. You don't want all that content index and everything. And then you launch it. And so many times that gets forgotten about. And what happens? Google doesn't, it's no index. Google doesn't look at it. It doesn't get picked up. Your client's waiting there for weeks going, hey, are we ever going to show up in Google search results? And you explain to them, well, it takes time, and then you go back and you check and you realize you forgot to uncheck that and you are embarrassed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the thing with that is it takes like an inordinate amount of time to then reappear in the search engines, and it's just like it's squeaky bum time from the minute that you realize what you've done, and you get that little red flag in the admin bar at the top that says no index is on, and it's like your heart just sinks.
Yeah.
Oh, we've all been there. We have all been there.
Mm-hmm. I really actually am happy about that. I know this is it's kind of nerdy, but I'm really happy about that red index thing. And I don't remember when that appeared in WordPress, but I know it hasn't been there forever. But I caught that just on a client site this week. And that's why I said I saw that this week. The site's been up for a couple months, and I know for a fact because we've got the checklists that it was done. Somehow, somewhere, somebody was in there goofing with things and it got checked again. And I don't know if, the client is aware. I have no idea. But at some point, thankfully, it didn't affect the results at all. But we don't want to end up in that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, rolling straight on to number 2 is not performing keyword research, which has to be one of the banes of my life when a client onboards a site or comes to me with some consultancy and they've got pages named completely random things because it made sense to them at the time that they were building the site out, and it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. At the end of the day, your website is a marketing tool. In order to get it to rank for something that the user is going to see, it needs to be using the language the user is going to search with. And if it doesn't, they're not going to see it. Then you're not going to get the traffic. Then you're not going to get any sales. And then you're going to make that my problem. And then my life becomes hell. And it just
your life becomes employed. What are you talking about?
Yeah, okay, maybe. But
let's actually retitle this one. These are the 10 mistakes you should be making before you call us for help.
So please do some keyword research first. It doesn't have to be, it's not like you need to do groundbreaking keyword research or go completely into every nook and cranny of the client niche in order to find the most specific term. No, but it needs to be applicable to what the searcher is going to search. And if it doesn't pass that filter, then just try a little bit harder.
Yeah. I'm not sure I have a great example off the top of my head right now, but I've been really amazed at doing keyword research the last couple of years. How many times the keywords that you come up with or that you uncover are really obvious, like they're the exact ones that you had in mind. So you kind of go, why did I even bother doing it? But then you get that data, right? And you see like what the search volume is, how difficult it'll be. The search volume is one of the most important ones to me in kind of putting putting yourself in check and saying, oh yeah, that's actually one we should work for because it has the volume. Whereas there's so many times, like in our onboarding process with new sites, one of the questions is, are there any keywords that, you must rank for, that in your heart and soul that you just have to rank for, right? We ask that. And sometimes we run through and it's like, it only gets 10 searches a month, right? Like, so it shouldn't be your focus. And you don't know that unless you do the keyword research.
I would say just to maybe tie this one off, because actually keywords lines us nicely up for tip 3 in a second. But when you're running keyword research, also take into account the cost per click information, because just because a keyword has a lot of traffic doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a lot of sales or inquiries from it. It could be a very top of funnel type term. So, in order to distinguish the terms which other people are getting conversions from, if you look at the cost per click data, somebody spending 30 cents a click to be on page 1 for a particular term, they're probably not getting too many leads from it. If somebody else is spending $30 a click for a click to be on page 1, they're far more likely to be getting leads or conversions or whatever the conversion metric is that you're working for. So whilst you may not run ads for these terms, considering the cost per click information can be key to determining where traffic that is likely to convert will sit.
Yeah. And then if you can, rank organically for those terms that people are paying $30, every time you get a click through, you're not making $30, but in a sense, you're getting a $30 click that for free. In a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So rolling on to number 3, Mr. JP.
Rolling on to number 3, and this feels a little contradictory over what we were just saying, but that is actually overusing your target keywords. And this is the old style. If you've been in the industry, you've been online long enough, you remember. It, if we were to build SEO Hive like 10 years ago, our homepage would say, "Hi, we're a white label SEO provider that does white label SEO for white label." You know what I mean? We would say the same thing over and over again. It's just so
for
annoying.
agencies that need white label support for their white label SEO services.
For digital
Contact.
agencies that work with WordPress clients. And just, oh boy. And there was, it's so funny. I just laugh at the times when you would read a website and you would read it and you'd be like, obviously they're just trying to, get those clicks in there and it doesn't actually read for a human. Well, it turns out Google's figured it out. They're done doing that.
Yep.
Keywords, that yes, they matter. They need to be there. But at the same time, they track so many other vital metrics that show you how the content is helpful. Is it, organized in a proper way? Feel free to help me out with some better terminology here, Pete. But, it's the whole helpful content that we've talked about is an amazing thing because now Google is trying to rank things based on actual real world performance.
Yeah, I think the two biggest elements that feed into this from an SEO perspective are natural language processing. So how you actually write in order, so that natural language processing is the process that the search engines use to read a page to see if it reads like its natural language, essentially. So i.e. it's written for a human, not for the algorithm. And then the second thing is the helpful content update that you've just mentioned, which has seriously moved the bar on how content needs to be helpful. It needs a user should be able to read a piece of content and actually when they get to the end of it be more educated or be able to take a different action than they would have before they started reading that piece of content. So if you're hitting those two things, then you're doing really well. But yeah, keyword stuffing has been a no for ages, and you can't do that anymore. Link stuffing is exactly the same. I mean, how many sites have we had where you had links, like hundreds of links in a footer, some of them colored the same background as the colors as the footer bar, so you couldn't see them. And
plumbing Los Angeles, plumbing San Diego, plumbing New York City,
yeah.
plumbing, for somebody based in Wichita.
Yeah, absolutely. And that of course means that you can't have the duplicate content, which that strategy did sort of employ. So all of that kind of stuff, not overusing your target keyword. You've got to use it enough. You've got to introduce them properly. We talked about that on a previous show. But yeah, not overusing them is a key thing. Now, while we're talking about content on the page, the fourth tip is about leaving development links within the site when you push it live, i.e. not updating the address from the staging address to the live domain name when you push a site live. And again, this has to be one of the most common issues we see when we get sites onboarded to us, that there is just some gobbledygook URLs involved in there from staging sites gone by that haven't been updated properly. So please, either we did a whole episode on how to launch a website properly. We did discuss this element in that to a bit more length than we're going to go into today, but please make sure you've got a plugin in there, something like Better Search Replace, or if your host does it when you set the primary domain. I use Cloudways for my main host. When I change that primary domain, they go through and update the database for me, so it kind of does it. But I still do have Better Search Replace in there for for belt and braces. So
we'll actually check just to be safe, just to make sure one didn't get missed. And we have literally migrated hundreds of websites to like Cloudways using that migrating tool, and it works fantastic. But there has been a handful where for some reason there were a few, I don't know if they were maybe encoded in a certain manner, but there are a few URLs that don't magically get picked up, and we've got to do it like that. The other big thing that gets left out with a lot of these tools, whether it's Cloudways or any of them, is if URLs are hard coded into any of the theme files or any of the widgets or anything like that, because it usually won't review those. So, and that's not the best practice, obviously, but it does happen, and we catch those sometimes too.
And sometimes you have to be careful with even the page builder that you use as well. I mean, Divi has a process, for example, if you're moving a Divi site, that you have to go through a specific process in order to transition the site from one URL to another. And Oxygen had the same thing from memory. So yeah, there might be specifics you need to be aware of, but please make sure that when you send a site live, it is all on the proper live URL, that the SSL certificate is correct, that all of the links are running on HTTPS rather than HTTP. It seems like such a small thing, and it's not a fun process to go through, particularly if you have to unpick a massive site with all of these issues. But look,
real life horror story. We had a client depart with us last week for a more niched provider. They're in real estate market or something, and they worked with an agency that's like dedicated in that, and that's fine. They moved their site over and everything is broken. It's been that way for a week. And I keep emailing going, you guys, you didn't change the URLs. And so all the URLs are pointing to a staging site that's on the new agency's things. And I'm going, every customer has this big error with all these things written all over it when they go to visit. That videos don't play, the images don't load. And so this happens. And I'm not trying to talk trash about this company. I don't know them from anybody else, but they're a professional company and they made the mistake. So it happens all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, crap on them. I'm trying to show you that even the pros make the mistakes.
So where are we going? What's next? What's number 5?
Yeah, another kind of thing to check when you're, in a technical world is looking at your images. A few years ago, optimizing your images was a huge thing. Now WordPress kind of takes care of most of it for you. You can still make some mistakes in this area though. So my big kind of suggestion, my general suggestion is use JPEGs, because even if they are massive, WordPress will shrink them down to like 25, 60 pixels or something. And it does a pretty good job compressing the JPEG. It's not the best, you could do better, but at a bare minimum, this is fine. If you use PNGs, on the other hand, though, those do not compress as well, and the file sizes can be massive, especially if they've got transparency or things. So my kind of just, like I said, this is the real basic. But if you're using images and they're photographs, right? There should probably be a JPEG. We'll talk about WebPs in a second, but there should probably be a JPEG. And if it's a graphic, like somebody designed and drew a box and it has bold colors, that can be a PNG. Using those two, you pretty much are going to avoid any major problems. But if you have, giant background images and they're saved as PNGs, they could be like 10, 20 megabytes. Same thing with like background videos and stuff. We recommend hosting videos on a third-party platform or a CDN. And then, like I said, I mentioned WebPs, and that's kind of a newer technology. And they are great. They're much smaller. They're optimized. They work really well. But I still haven't fully adopted it because there's still a few people that use like an old browser that doesn't load them properly, or they don't, sometimes if you click them, they turn into downloads rather than embeds. So, these things can be remedied and fixed and approached, but we're not quite doing that yet, they leave things on the safe side. But for people that just like throw in a whole giant gallery of, 20 megabyte PNG files, the site just, or the homepage itself, can just become massive and impossible to download. So that could really be detrimental for your site speed and indexing it.
One tip I suppose I would have with the whole image thing is you know, if you do use a service like Short Pixel or
Hmm.
I don't know, EWWW, I don't know how you pronounce it. I always sort of call
Yeah,
it
I
something
don't
wrong.
know.
Anyway, you know who I mean,
Yeah.
ewww.io. They both have parts of their plugin which hook onto the WordPress image uploader, so they will actually use their compression engine instead of
Hmm.
WordPress's compression engine, just as you're uploading media files. So if you do already use those services, or you're going to use them for the production site once it goes live, get them in there early, because then just as you're dragging stuff into the site through the build, it's doing the job for you as well. So you don't need to. It's just something you can then set and forget. It's that easy.
Yeah, it's nice to do it from the get-go, from the very beginning, and that will convert them. And he's right; it definitely compresses them better, and you can adjust it too. You could say, you know, I want to compress the hell out of this. I don't care if there's a little pixelation, or you can say, you know, let's keep it real clean, but you know, just try to get what you can out of it.
The one thing I would say about use plugin, so I moved from Short Pixel to EWWW because for a number of reasons, but EWWW has a built-in CDN network, which granted Short Pixel does, but you got to pay for a higher tier for it. Whereas with
Mhm.
EWWW, it is lumped within the standard fee, and I've got to say it works a treat. However, when you move the site, the CDN gets linked to the domain. So if you're going to use you within if somebody's still listening to this, they're going to think I'm absolutely insane. Anyway, if you're
I have
using
no
this,
idea what this
the
EWWW. I don't even know, but yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, so if you're using it through the development process, by all means, put the image uploader in there. You know, get the plugin in there, do that, but do not set up the CDN. Make the CDN part of the go live process, because it really will make your life easier when you need to send the site live. That's
Yeah,
all I'm
and
saying.
you probably don't want to be piping your development changes back and forth to the CDN all the time anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
um, yeah, I like. I mean, we're not going to get into it now, but I'm kind of curious why you moved away from Short Pixel, because I still use that for the most part. But that's because I bought a whole bunch of lifetime credits, and it just has worked pretty well, so I kept using it. But
Hmm.
one kind of warning I will throw out there is, well, we're both talking about the paid, you know, services from both of these companies. A very popular one is WP Smush or Smush It or one of those. And I see that
Yes.
installed on tons of sites. I mean, it works fine. In fact, I've liked some of their features. But the problem with the free one is it doesn't optimize your main image, the original one.
Okay.
It only optimizes your thumbnails. So I have seen so many people run this on like sites with like 30, 40, 50,000 images in their library, and it takes like literally days, and it made no difference because they're all the site or all the pages are referencing the full images, and those don't get compressed. Like that's their kind
Yeah.
of, well, if you upgrade, we'll do that for you too. And it's like, well, that's the one we actually want you to do. So basically what I'm saying is I can't see a benefit of using Smush if you don't want to pay for it.
Right.
If
Fair
you
enough.
just want the free version, I can't see a reason to use it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So we're now hedging on the themes of the next tip number 6, which is ignoring technical SEO features, particularly within the build. So look, we're not going to go into this in great detail, because episode 9, which was 2 weeks ago, was all about the importance of technical SEO. So if you want to deep dive into this, go and check out episode number 9. If we remember when we're doing the show notes, we'll make sure that there's a link over to it directly from this episode. But yeah, look, just get so much of technical SEO is almost a set and forget feature. If you code it right, if you build it right, if you set it up right at go live, that, you know, there's pockets of time where you need to be considering these features. But if you get it right at that point, then actually you've done 65-70% of the legwork that the client is ever going to need as they're using the site going forward. You can't control the content. I completely appreciate that. But you can control the way things are coded, the way that tags pull out into the into the front end, the way schema is set up. You can control the way that images are optimized, like we've just been saying, and how they are delivered through CDNs or whatever. You can do all of that stuff, and that's kind of the expectation when a user comes to a web professional to get a site built. So just get it right first time, and then, you know, have it in your checklist, have your processes around it, or get a team like SEO Hive involved. We have a product that will help you help identify these issues and fix them for you. But just get it done first time, and then, as I say, you know you're handing over a good product to the client when you've done that.
Yeah, and I will raise that. Do this on your development starter site.
Yeah, yeah. Enough
There's a
said.
whole
Just
episode
do
right there.
that.
And we're done. And we're done. No, but if you've got the structure in your development site, then you never have to. I mean, you need to go over, you need to check these things. And actually, that kind of segues into the next one. We actually made a list for this podcast, if anyone listening can't tell. And it's going so much smoother, Pete. I like it. We should do this more often. And I'm really surprised how well things segue. And I'm not sure we meant to do that. But anyway.
You mean you're not sitting there thinking, what the hell is he going to say next?
No, I am. But I'm not caught completely off guard. So that's what's great about it. So keeping me honest, keeping my attention span going. The next one is one that I know I've said before, and that's run your SEO program through its onboarding, its wizard, whatever the startup thing is. Just install it and run it through it. That just go through. Do the best job you can. Even if you know nothing about it, you will do good. You're not going to hurt anything probably by adding the basics. And when you go through these steps, they're very simple. What is the site name? What is, the contact information? It asks this stuff, so it puts it in the schema, so it delivers it to Google properly, and all that stuff is easy to find. Um, I I saw a post on Facebook the other day. Someone said, "Hey, I saw the SEO Hive guys were talking about how they like SEO Press, so we're gonna use that one and pull out whatever it was." And that's great. I'm so honored. We love SEO Press. We think they're great. But unless you're using like Yoast, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that one in a second, there's really no point in taking out your current SEO plugin. Whatever you've got is probably fine. Just go through the steps and make sure it's good. The reason I say Yoast, and that's not to talk trash about them, but it's got to be the least featured SEO plugin out there, because they want you to pay for the premium and all that stuff. Whereas everything else just includes all the features. Most of them don't do anything more than the other one does or anything better. They just do it a little bit differently. Pete just moved his head in a way that says, no, I know one reason why this one is better, but
no, it wasn't that. Sorry, go on.
For the most part, it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other. But the point is, just run through the wizard, because it'll take care of the 80% of the most important things for you.
Yeah. I was thinking two things. I was thinking one was it will also take out the line, "This is just another WordPress website," from the tagline field in settings, which is another giveaway that nobody's even looked at that page. And the other thing I was thinking was remembering being on a panel being on a panel with a podcast. Was on a panel that was featured in a podcast that was hosted by GoDaddy, and I was very honored to be there. Anyway, this guest was a bit late, so we started without him, and I was asked a question about SEO plugins and gave a very similar response to you, which is, well, you can use any of them as long as it's not Yoast. And just as I finished speaking, our late podcast guest arrived, who was one of the development team from Yoast plugin, who I then had to justify myself to, who had just spent the last 3 minutes in the waiting room listening to me trash his plugin. That's why my head went.
Oopsie. There's nothing wrong with the plugin. It's the OG, I don't know if it is the original one, but it's been there for as long as I've been doing WordPress stuff. So give credit to them and the things that they've done for WordPress and in the industry. But the fact of the matter is, the last time we looked into the premium options, it was like $75 per site per advanced module. So if they were a local business, they needed to pay $75 for that. If they wanted something else, it was another 75 on top of that. And so it doesn't make sense. When SEO Press, I think, is like $39 a year or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I was going to say about 40 or 50
dozens
bucks for
and hundreds of websites. So it just made sense. And nothing, not necessarily trying to ding their business model. If it works for them, great. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that are happy paying it. So good for them, not me.
Absolutely. So the next one, number 8. Now this one's a little more complicated or more in depth than some of those that have passed before. But this is about making sure that you do not have a flat URL structure. So what is good practice for SEO is to nest content. So that means that you have, everybody knows that the homepage sits on the main URL. So seohive.co, that is our homepage. A flat URL structure would then mean that every other URL sits directly under the homepage. So you'd have seohive.co/local SEO, seohive.co/ the content plan, seohive.co/ this podcast is about the top 10 mistakes that you can make when setting up a WordPress website. They all are the same weight to Google. Google can't group any of them together because you haven't nested any of them together. Now, the reason that this is important is that some keywords are more competitive than others. And that means that certain keywords, in order to rank meaningfully, you have to prove an authority in that particular content area for a specific thing. And you can do that by nesting pages. So let's take us for an example. We can have a page which is seohive.co/white label SEO. So then within that, we can then have white label content writing. We can have white label local SEO. We can have white label technical SEO, but they would all be children of the white label SEO page. So the URL structure would be seohive.co/white label SEO/local SEO, for example, for the local SEO page. So really, if you think about your website as a family tree with the homepage sitting at the top as like the matriarch, you don't want every other page to be a brother or sister to each other. You want to have little family units within that then denote or allow you to denote authority in particular areas. And that means, most client websites we work with, they want to rank for a number of terms. You know what? For some terms, one page might be enough, or you might need one page and one child, and that is it. Others, however, might need a dozen pages or 24 pages because it might be far more competitive. So you're building in the structure in order to do that. And the number of websites we get through where everything is just homepage / and then the URL, it does my head in. And really, the easiest thing to do is to nest the pages. However, one word of warning: if you're doing this to an existing site, if you're moving pages around, you need to make sure you put 301 redirect in from the original URL to the new URL. Otherwise, you'll get a whole lot of errors for someone else.
Yeah, don't just go changing it and think, oh, I fixed everything. No. You change things.
Absolutely.
Hey, do you want to roll into number 10? Because I realize that might actually just be a good segue.
Okay, so number 10, we'll skip number 9. You can finish with number 9.
I'll come back to that one.
Yeah. So the next one is about creating internal links. Now, everything I've just said is to do with flat structure. That essentially is one method of creating internal links. However, you can make internal links by using content around your around your site as well. This really does apply to blog content. So if you've got a section about white label SEO, let's run with the same example. We might not want to create 24 pages under that to do with white label SEO. We might just want our one top level page about white label SEO, and then the 3 or 4 children, which are our services, to do with that. So how do we then prove further authority in this area? Well, we do that by creating blog content and then using internal links to link back to those appropriate pages and passing authority that way on target keywords. That's the first thing with internal linking. Make sure that the links are on target keywords, not on phrases like click here or read more or see this, whatever it might be. It needs to be on the target keyword. The real key with this is about actually spending some time reviewing past content so that it links almost forward in time to content that you've produced in the future. So if you go and create a new page today about let's say about local SEO. We go and create a new local SEO page and we want to go and find some links for it. Well, let's go back in time through our archive of blog topics and find where we can put links in from some of the older content that reaches forward in time to the new local SEO page. It's not a process that you necessarily want to do with every piece of content you create. We do that as part of our content pathway, but if you're working on a client website or they're paying you for a few hours a month or a few hours a quarter, you know what, grab a coffee, spend 20 minutes and just look at their new blogs and look at their old blogs and see if you can bring some links from the past over to the future. And you'd be amazed how quickly you can start to build links that way. If you want to
Yeah.
automate the process slightly, I realize this is quite a long one. If you want to automate the process slightly, then there are some plugins you can use. There's one called Link Juicer, which is a WordPress plugin where you can actually put in into a post the keywords you want other places to link to on that post, and it will go and find them for you. It's kind of accurate, but it does miss a few because you need to set quite a lot of parameters. And another option that I frequently use is a tool called inlinks.net, which is an external setup. It's a code of JavaScript that you pop in the header of the site, but it basically goes and does the same thing, but it's more detailed than the WordPress plugin, but nothing is as good as going and doing it yourself.
Yeah, they can be really helpful on the blogs, like you mentioned, especially old ones. They can really kind of boost. They could be sitting there for years, and if you go through and do that, you could really create some juice. I've been seeing a client did a really good job of this. We're launching a new dentist website soon, and they've gone through all the service pages, and there's great information about each type of service. There's obviously a lot of different things that dentists do. And anytime that it references, say preventive dentistry or cosmetic dentistry, it always will go and link to those pages. And so that's not the blog content. It's a little bit different, but it helps support all of those, help strengthen them. So the last one on our list actually is reviewing the performance and or making some kind of, basic performance optimizations. I think the real easy way to do this is use something like WP Rocket. That's my kind of performance plugin of choice. I know Perf Matters. There's all kinds of different ones out there, but it's just one of those things that we do on every site we launch. We implement kind of basic caching, optimize the delivery of the CSS, and we defer JavaScript. You can do a lot more, but usually we lazy load images as well. You can do a lot more, but you've got to check everything, make sure it doesn't break any functionality, make sure things load, make sure contact forms still send, make sure pop-ups pop up. I mean, these are all the things that break almost every time when you just slap a performance plugin and click all the boxes. So don't do that. Please don't do that. I'd almost rather you not do anything. So you got to check it. Be sure it all works. But you can also avoid a lot of those issues too in your builds as well. So when you're building things, these days, don't use a slider, don't use too many fancy effects and things like that. I mean, they're all, everybody loves their bling and their fancy stuff, but all of those things affect performance, and it's just going to cause headaches. So I try to shy away from most of those. But yeah, I think these days, like using the block editor, it really doesn't load too much. In fact, most of our sites are ranking close to 95 to 100 without any performance update or any performance optimizations, just by using optimized images and a good theme. So there's a lot that you can do there, but there's also the basics will we'll cover like 90% of what you need to accomplish there. So definitely, approach performance, check your site speed scores, and see what you can fix there if there is anything.
Absolutely. My little tip on that one is, if you're using a plugin to optimize the delivery of images. Now, you can do this through WP Rocket, or this could be through something like the CDN through you that we were talking about earlier. Make sure that you set the option for setting image dimensions, because that will seriously help your cumulative layout shift scores when it comes to that. So it basically, what that will do is put the dimensions of the image on the container, so that when the page loads, because the image is going to lazy load in the gap, so when the page loads, all the content is in the right place and the image will just fill the hole, rather than, if you don't set that, the placeholder for the image will actually close up, so that then the text, everything that's underneath it, will have to move down when the image loads, and that's what gives you the lower cumulative layout shift score, because that's exactly what cumulative layout shift is.
That's a good tip, and that's a big ranking. That's not ranking factor, but that's a big factor on these tests too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's kind of funny that shows me how I know I'm a weirdo, because I actually like get a kick out of seeing the websites load like that, which is not right. But like, I just love how I love knowing how things are built. Like, I love taking things apart. I love looking at them. So when I like see the structure come together, I'm like, ooh, oh, but that was not good for user experience.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's yeah, considering if you're going this far into it, it's literally a tick of a box. So just don't forget to tick the box. But considering point 1 we made was about forgetting to untick a box, I think it's important that we mention the boxes to tick as well as the ones to untick. So that's it. That's our top 10 WordPress mistakes that we hope you avoid making, directly because you've listened to this podcast. No, not because of that, but because it's a good way to deal with WordPress and to deliver sites for clients.
Yeah. A lot of these you learn from trial and error. Some of them you learn by listening to our podcast. So you're welcome.
Well, if you enjoyed this show, which we really hope you have, because we're really enjoying making this show, but if you, and that's no word of a lie, I'm not just saying that, we genuinely do get a kick out of making this. But if you do enjoy it, please make sure that you subscribe in your podcast player of choice, or if you're watching it on YouTube, go and hit that subscribe button. And if you're really want to become a super fan, make sure you go and leave a comment on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify or somewhere like that, because that would absolutely make our day. And if we don't see you in the next if we don't see you in the next episode, no, if we don't see you in the comments or the reviews, we will see you in the next episode. Have a good week, everybody.
The WP SEO Show is brought to you by SEO Hive, your agency's proactive white label SEO partner. We understand that finding a reliable SEO supplier is key to ensuring you build stable monthly recurring revenue into your digital agency. At SEO Hive, we have a suite of products that will help you sell, scale and deliver your monthly SEO retainers, from our Scout reports and one-off technical boosters, to our flagship local SEO and honeypot plans, all of which have clear pricing and monthly deliverables. If you want to explore how SEO Hive can help your agency deliver high-quality and reliable SEO agreements for your clients, you can find more information at seohive.co and schedule a call to discuss the next steps.